Hey Dreamer, please.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this video is going to go through what is going to come in the next few updates. I'm sure many of you have realized Global has changed up the entire order of the hero release, and even the chapters are coming almost every month, so it's very likely we're gonna get chapter 12 next month. But before we go into that, I'm going to just share with you which of the heroes I think are going to come out, and we will also talk about the upcoming PvE content that will be introduced to the game. Okay, so without further ado, I'm sure many people are speculating that we are going to get Event Plus 2 weeks later because it's been almost 2 weeks since Chris Plus got released. Okay, and I've been telling many people that Event Plus is a definite must pull because of his skill set. Okay, take note that these percentages are based on his level 1 skill. Okay, so on his basic attack, he has the chance to remove buffs and also reduce the damage he receives. On his skill 1, he is able to stun enemies and knock back, stun one enemy and knock back, and it also resets his skill 2 cooldown. For his skill 2, he does charge to one enemy and deal a good amount of damage, and also additional damage to stun enemies. He targets DPS heroes first, so in PvP wise, this will most likely go towards the Minks, the Dylans, the Shanes. Okay, for skill 3, he becomes invincible, which is a new kind of ability whereby you do not get damage and receive any status effects, and he also increases his crit rate and crit damage by a good amount of percent, at higher skill levels for 15 seconds, and also heals himself. So this is going to be his main sustain and also where the bulk of his damage is going to come from. He's also a very strong single target damage dealer, okay, especially from his ultimate, whereby he deals 1125% to one enemy, and of course this scales up as well, and it also has a 100% chance to stun. He is used in both the PvE and PvP side of the game, so he will be a very long lasting hero in many content that is going to come, so I think he's worth the pull. Okay, the thing is, he comes 5 months after launch in Korea server, but for us it is almost only 2 months so far, and he is also released on the finale chapter of season 1. That is after chapter 12. So unless Netmarble Global is going to release the finale with chapter 12, otherwise Event Plus could be coming, 1 month later instead of 2 weeks later. So this is something to keep in mind. We are not too sure what they're going to do, but he is technically the last remaining Legendary Plus hero for the season 1 story, and if they really do want to rush him out for whatever reasons, he could very well come out 2 weeks later, so just get ready for that. And 2 weeks later, we are definitely, most probably going to get chapter 12, which means Legendary Len is going to come out. Legendary Len is more of a AoE damage dealer, and even her passive allows her to deal extra damage, okay, to shock enemies within a certain area around her. Most of her attacks are circular in range, one is semicircle as well, and her ultimate is a straight line skill, and almost all her skills have the ability to shock and deal extra damage to shock enemies. Her skill 3 is particularly interesting because it reduces the enemy's movement and attack speed, and also has a 100% chance to increase her own attack speed. So that means she is likely going to be a very heavy damage hitter. And one important thing is she will be a suppressor for the Nestra Shane raid, and with that, it kind of makes her a recommended pull, but just bear in mind that for the Nestra Shane raid, you can also use Windigo as a suppressor, so if you are building up a Windigo already, you may not want to, throw your rubies on Len unless you really like Legendary Len. So yeah, that's something to keep in mind. We'll talk about the raid heroes themselves later on, but mainly for Len, she will be used in the long term because of her suppressor ability. And in PvP, she is likely going to last for just maybe 2 months from her release, because that's what happened in Korea server. But then again, because the order is so different right now, back then when Len came out, Chris didn't exist and she could have her time, but since Chris Plus now exists, I'm not too sure if Len is going to meet up to that standard, but she does pair very well with Fodina Eileen in PvP, and that is a very likely team composition that you guys may want to try out if you are using Fodina Eileen because of all the shock capability in that team. Okay, and if we think about the release of Evan, we definitely cannot miss out the release of Nestra Shane, legendary Nestra Shane, that also came out alongside Evan in the Korea server. But because Len is definitely going to come out for chapter 12, I'm not too sure if Shane is going to come out with Evan, if Evan is also going to come out next month, next 2 weeks later. Okay, so they could release a Shane banner herself. That's one possibility. Okay, for Shane, she is a great PvP unit. Okay, she is not going to be affected by debuffs because she will cleanse it off and also give herself a shield. She also has a lot of AoE damage for PvP, has a chance to pull, has a chance to blind, has also a chance to reduce enemy attack speed and remove their buffs, and she also targets ranged enemies first, so this is where Claire's are going to be nailed down. Okay, and for her ultimate, she also deals AoE damage over time, in fact, okay, for every 2 seconds for 6 seconds, and that itself has a chance to knock the enemies back as well. So for Shane, she fits well in a more universal base comp compared to Claire, because Claire is ultimately a ranged hero, and it really depends on your formation, because there is also a formation that uses universal heroes and a ranged hero, if I'm not wrong. Okay, but you can also pair Shane with Claire for a lot of pull and push shenanigans, and I think that could also work. So Shane herself will also probably last for a decent amount of time in the PvP meta, especially with Ace coming up in the future. Ace will also be used alongside Shane and Evan when he gets released as well. So they will form the bulk of the meta when the time comes. But seeing how Chris Plus was released alongside Mercure, I have a feeling that they could pull a double Shane banner and release Kid Shane with Nestra Shane. I think that would be pretty cool, because Kid Shane has already been exposed to us in chapter 11, so I was quite surprised that they didn't actually release Kid Shane at that point or slightly after. Instead they released Chris. Okay, but yeah, Kid Shane is also a likely possibility to come with the Nestra Shane, maybe as a double Shane release. So she is a specialist for Field Expedition, and I would strongly recommend everyone to get her because of her amazing capability for farming. Now, we are not too sure what Field Expedition will turn into based on the recent survey that they have. Okay, and it could be for the better, it could be for the worse. We are not too sure at the moment. But one thing for sure is that for Shane, she is used in Field Expedition in the long run, in almost a permanent hero in Field Expedition farming, because of her ability to increase entire team's attack speed, movement speed, and also reset her own cooldown. She also is able to charge and has a chance to trigger 2 combo skills, which is something that you don't really see in regular heroes, and most of her attacks are all AoE in terms of their nature, and the damage is also pretty hard and distributes amongst all the enemies. So as you increase her skill levels, she is gonna do huge damage to all the enemies in that area. Okay, she also is able to reduce the damage you take and also increase the damage you deal to the enemies. So take note that in future, when extreme Field Expedition happens, you will be needing to kill 100 enemies in Field Expedition, so you will need the speed for sure in order to be able to farm very efficiently, because otherwise you'll be doing regular speed runs, and that's going to take quite a while for even one reward. Okay, so that is why Shane is going to be such a good support and damage dealer at the same time for Field Expedition in future. They could possibly release her when Field Expedition actually changes, or when the new difficulty of Field Expedition is launched. So then it will make more sense for players to pull for her. So something that has also been going on in the community is that Aquila and Juju, okay, will also be released together in the next update, because next update is going to be a Legend update for sure. There's not going to be a Legend Plus because Chris just came out 2 weeks ago. So there's a rumor that both of them will also be released together in order to keep up with the actual banner pacing, because otherwise they won't have the time to be released anymore once Season 1 ends. So for Aquila, I think she is kind of like a mid-tier PvP unit. When she was released, based on the research I did, she was used okay, for a while. But I don't think at this point, because as I said, Chris Plus came out very early, and because Chris Plus came out so early and we are expecting Evan Plus to come out 2 weeks later, I really don't see a slot for Aquila to come in the current meta at all, because I'm sure, you know, you're not going to be pumping all your soul stones into a level 50 Aquila in 2 weeks only for her to be phased out. So I don't really think she is worth the pull, because back when she came out in Korea server, Aquila actually had some time to shine because she was kind of like 4 weeks before Chris Plus. So at least there was a month of breathing space for Aquila to do something. But right now with Chris Plus, I really don't feel like she has a slot in the team. And yes, as I mentioned, there are better heroes coming at a very fast pace for global server, so I really don't feel that you should be using rubies on her. Alongside with her would be Juju. Juju, as I mentioned in the first upcoming heroes video I made, she is someone that brings a new mechanic, which is mutation, a new status I mean, and when she is incapacitated, she becomes unstoppable, which means she will not be able to take any damage when she is incapacitated. So Juju is kind of like the second new legend range hero released since Claire, and it's been how long? It's been about 2 months since Claire's release, okay, by the time if Juju were to come next week. And I think you can use a ranged hero comp with Juju. She is actually a very decent ranged unit hero in PvP, so that's always an option if you want to change the concept of team. But you must also keep in mind that universal teams are going to dominate in PvP very soon, especially with the arrival of Evan Plus and Nestra Shane. Okay, so Juju's time in PvP, again, I'm not too sure how long that will be. Nonetheless, she will remain as one of the top ranged units you can use in PvP for a pretty long time until the next ranged unit, which is going to be Yuri, which is supposed to be released in summer, but you know, they can do anything they want. But yeah, she has a very decent kit that can cause mutation, and if you didn't know, mutation actually decreases the enemy's defense, okay, by 20%. So she will allow your entire team to do more damage to the enemy team, and that could possibly help, because as we know, defense reduction in PvP is a very deadly status to be inflicted with. So those are the 6 heroes which I feel will be coming out in the next 1 to 2 updates. So moving on to the content, obviously, as I mentioned, we are going to have Nestra Shane Raid in 2 weeks time, because I'm pretty sure they're going to release chapter 12. Okay, with Nestra Shane Raid, we are also going to get the T11 to T15 4-man raid expansion. So there's nothing much that I'm going to go in depth about here, because you will use the same teams. It will just be tougher bosses for you to fight. So try to strengthen your raid teams if you want to clear these fast. And then we also have the Labyrinth mode. Okay, I will elaborate more later. We also have the Catastrophe raid. This will come out with the finale chapter for season 1, which is also the reason why I feel that they may not release this and they may not release Evan Plus so soon, because it will be 2 huge updates that are clashing. And I will talk about what happened in those updates from the Korea server at the end of the video, so do stay tuned for that. And we also could get guild raid a lot earlier than Korea server as well, based on something I saw, and I will also show you guys later. Okay, so first we're going to talk about Nestra Shane Raid and what heroes you need to prepare. I'm pretty sure if you've done your research, you will know that there's one hero that you really need, and that's going to be Scott. And Karin is definitely a must-have. Len is the suppressor, and the best DPS for the Nestra Shane Raid turns out to be Yeonhee. So I'm sure many people may not have a Yeonhee, because she is after all a legendary hero, and you are gonna be, you know, it's all about luck in getting whatever legendary hero in the banner. So you may not have a Yeonhee. Don't worry too much about that, because I've also seen people just use whatever DPS they have. Ultimately, you just need a DPS. But the reason why Yeonhee is so good is because if you were to look at this thing, in the Nestra Shane Raid, Nestra Shane actually summons these support units, these little balls flying around her. Okay, and this gives her an attack buff if I'm not wrong. Because if you look at the image, she has 17 stacks of attack buffs. I don't know how, but yeah, that happens. And if you don't kill them, they're gonna stack on more, as you can see. The whole screen is filled with all the support balls. And here she has 20 stacks of attack increase. And I really think that is not something you want to deal with. So the reason why Yonhee is used, I would infer, because there's really no information about the raid skill set of the boss online, and then usually they are from YouTube videos, and it's very difficult for me to understand Korean. Okay, but from what I can infer, it's because she has an AoE skill, an AoE ultimate, a very strong AoE ultimate, which can help you get rid of the balls, and you can nuke Shane easier or take less damage. So that's one thing. The second thing is on one of her skills, she also has a defense reduction, which means you can do more damage to Shane the boss as well. And you realize in this team there's no debuffer per se. You're not going to use Rachel, so in that case you could be dealing a lot less damage. So Yonhee can double up as a debuffer as well as a damage dealer, AoE damage dealer. So that's why she's preferred. Now there is another team which I discovered online, and it's very fun. So this is the Luki, Shay, Miss Velvet and Karin team. So I'm going to just play a short snippet of the clip that I found. So it's basically just about kiting around the entire field, just from controlling Karin. So Karin will run around and around and around, while Nestra Shane will just chase her all the way, and Luki, Shay, Miss Velvet will attack Nestra Shane from wherever they are in the middle. So that is a very cute strategy you can try if you do have these heroes. I would say this is a more budget team because of Luki and Shay, but then again, you need to have Miss Velvet. The reason why you need to have Miss Velvet is because she attacks from a range. So you won't have an issue where she is running after Nestra Shane as well, right? So she can be at one spot and hit Nestra Shane in that perimeter, and that's how you get the damage done. Because otherwise, if you're using someone like Dylan's, I'm pretty sure Dylan's is going to run after Nestra Shane as well, and then that defeats the whole purpose of you doing this strategy. Okay. Yep, and as I mentioned, Windigo is a possible substitute for a suppressor, but because of his lower stats, I'm not too sure if you really want to use him. You can try for sure and see how that goes, okay? So next up we have the Labyrinth. So the Labyrinth is a mode whereby there are 30 stages, and you will get very good rewards at the 10th, 20th and 30th stage, okay? Each of the stage is going to be split into, I think, 6 segments, 5 floors each, okay? And based on the developers' notes in Korea, they designed this stage to look like a manually controlled PvP. Okay, the heroes, the enemies basically will not have the same skills as what you know from them, and every week the enemies will change. So from all the update notices I've researched on Korea server, there's about 8 different trials that will recycle every 8 weeks. So this is how it looks like. Basically, the enemies from the Codex, which is our familiar heroes, will become the enemies. You won't be fighting monsters at all. And you can see here that they do have very high levels, level 82. And they also have buffs attached to them based on actual equipment sets. Okay, so it's not something that you can cheese through. Of course, eventually you can, but at this point, maybe not, okay? And one more thing is that you can also use certain heroes for certain weeks, and they will allow you, and they will have extra buffs for your team, and you can clear Labyrinth much easier. So yeah, this is basically what you will do in Labyrinth. So because this is primarily a PvP inspired mode, PvP units are going to be the best heroes for the mode. We have Ming, you have Shane, Rudy, Chris Plus, Dylan's, Claire, Spike, Eileen. Of course, the list goes on for all the possible PvP units. Okay, in future you get Ace, you get Evan. All these heroes are going to be really good here as well. Ultimately, whatever you use in your PvP, whatever you see in your PvP, should be used in this mode. So heroes like Cosette are not going to be good here because she is a single target damage dealer, and you're not dealing with single enemies at all in Labyrinth. Next up is the Catastrophe boss. Okay, this is an 8-man raid. This will be the second 8-man raid in the game, and what's very interesting about this raid is that you do not do damage to the boss. You actually do healing. Okay, so how it works is that Catastrophe is trying to kill Fine, and what you need to do is to heal Fine all the way to 100%, and when that happens, Catastrophe will die. Okay, so it's a very interesting concept and I'm looking forward to it a lot. So obviously when I say healers, support units, these are the heroes that you want to be focusing on. Luki, Shay, Serena as the battery team so that you will recycle outs and heal a lot. Okay, Karin, Ian, Henry, Melissa and Rudy for tankiness, for heals. Basically this is the most ideal set of 8 you can start with right now, okay, when the raid is launched, unless they do release Shay earlier, then you could possibly use Shay, Legend Shay in the raid as well. There's also a possible option of using Kate Plus if you want as a tank. Okay, Rudy Plus or Rudy Plus or Legendary Rudy, either one is fine. Okay, they are both really good heroes for this raid as well. So yeah, basically this is going to be a very fun and interesting raid, and the rewards you get from this raid are also very important, and I will talk about them at the end of the video as well. So I mentioned about guild raid. Okay, the reason why I want to bring up guild raid is because when I was just looking through some files, I saw this image of Lee and Noho as future banners together, and it's very strange because alongside is whatever we are having now, the banners we are having in global server now. Okay, Korea server does not have Lee and Noho banners going on. Currently they're having Bai Jiao and Orly. So this is very out of place. Okay, firstly, and it is found in global files. It is also titled GB, which stands for global. So I was quite surprised when I saw this. So I feel that what if they do a Lee and Noho release? But Lee's release will be way too early because he belongs as a season 2 character. He was released with Rin. So if they do release Lee now, it is just way too early, and he is a definite skip for sure because he's really bad. Okay, so the main focus here is Noho and the introduction of Guild Raid, because when Noho was released in Korea server, Guild Raid released 1 week later. So what do you need to prepare for Guild Raid? Basically, Guild Raid consists of 3 different dragons that do 3 different status effects. Okay, mainly, okay, one is the Fear Dragon, which casts fear. One is the Thunder Dragon, which shocks you, and the last one is the Silence Dragon. You realize that these 3 statuses are statuses that you do not use in actual raids. Okay, so you do need a separate set of units, okay, resistors, for these raids. So I will be talking about the Fear Dragon first. I will show you 3 different teams. The first team is the best team that is used in Korea server at the moment. The second team is kind of like a mixture of then and now. And the last team is going to be a team that you can use when the raid is launched with the heroes we have now. Okay, so these are the heroes. Seek is going to be the future suppressor and the fear resistance provider for the raid. Okay, Lina and Shay, very good support units as you will know, and Cosette is here as a damage dealer. Oh yes, one thing you need to know about Guild Raid is that you cannot repeat heroes, just like Guild War. So you will need 3 separate PvE teams as well for Guild Raid, just like how you need 3 separate PvP teams for Guild War. Okay, so you will see that I'm not going to repeat any heroes across the entire role. Evan is going to be a great DPS as well. You can use Dion for his fear resistor if you can use Dion for his fear resistance if you're not going to pull for Seek, but it's still highly recommended to get Seek because he is a suppressor unit. Melissa for the crit reduction, and Karin for basically heals, shields and revives. And with the current global hero roster, you can actually just use 2 very strong damage dealers, because in this raid it does not really require you to use range or melee damage dealers specifically, so you can try to craft a team whereby you rely on Karin as the main healer and tanker, maybe Dion as the fear resistor, and use 2 damage dealers for your side. Okay, but for the Thunder Dragon, it is strongly recommended to use range dealers because he deals quite a bit of melee damage. So the best team that Korea is using now is Ruri, Noho, Chris and Karin. And Noho is actually the suppressor for the raid. She is also one that provides shock resistance. Another team which I came across was Luki, Noho, Rudy and Shay. Yeah, so this is kind of like a mixture of then and now. Okay, and then you also have the team that you can use right now. The very basic team will be Claire, If you don't have a hero like Cosette, okay, Henry for shock resistance, Chris for the debuffs, and Shay for the outrush and heals. For the Silence Dragon, you will be relying on Gillahan or Velda for silence resistance. Gillahan is going to be the suppressor for the raid, Evan and Rachel for damage dealing, and Alice for the heals. That's the best team. The reason why you will realize that this Silence Dragon is the complete opposite from the Thunder Dragon, which focuses on range dealers. Silence Dragon requires you to Silence Dragon will require or prefer you to use melee damage dealers, okay? And you also have Adele and Rachel. Adele is gonna be a hero that feeds off Rachel's burns. He also does burn himself, but he will also deal damage, extra damage to burn targets. So he will also be a great damage dealer alongside Rachel. So that's one possible team you can use. Take note that Legend Shay does have revive as well, but only for one specific hero and it's not team based, okay? And if this raid is launched right now, you can go with the following lineup, which is Dylan's, Rachel, Velda, and Serena. That will also work out pretty well since you cannot reuse Karin at all, okay? So yep, this is pretty much what you need to prepare for all the upcoming PvE modes. And just to give you guys a clearer idea of what actually happened in Korea server, in the Chapter 12 update, we got the Nestra Chain raid, we got the 4-man raid expansion, we also got Divinity Page 2, okay? We also have the new attack set released. So the attack speed set is really going to be a very important set for PvP because if you do attack faster, you can nuke the enemy faster, and you also get your ultimate gauge faster. So it's going to be one of the most important gear sets you're going to farm for better PvP results. This update also sees the release of Nestra Chain accessory set, whereby whenever you attack, you have a chance to create a shield around that hero. Now in between this update with the finale update, we have actually more Celestial Tower expansions. We got the release of Labyrinth. We got something called map fragment crafting, whereby you can actually use rare raid materials such as your Lizardra claw, your Lizardra scale, your icicle thing, and your all that kind of rare raid materials. You can actually use them to craft map fragments. And every 5 map fragments that you have, you can use that to craft 200 maps. So I think that is a really neat addition to have if they do want to bring it to global server. Okay, we never know. But yeah, that will be another way you can utilize your rare raid materials if you are not converting them to legend raid materials. Okay. Also, very interestingly, during this period of in-between updates, we also have Ming becoming a suppressor. You realize that this was something that was default at launch. So there are many things that are already in our game, but Korea server took a very long time to implement, such as Ming becoming a suppressor. If I'm not wrong, Iota as well. All the rare heroes that were not suppressors became a suppressor during this middle period. We also have the introduction of Raid Essence, whereby you can actually convert your rare raid materials to legend raid materials. So that's one thing. We also have the release of greater maps, and yes, they did not have greater maps back then, and they all rely on maps, which is why there was a map fiasco in Korea server when it started. But after that, it kind of died down, and they even released greater maps. We also have the 3 million account CP rewards, and one very important thing is they actually got a PT system, which is the PT system we all have. So they only got the PT system at week 20 of the game. Okay, bear that in mind. So on the finale update, we are gonna get the Catastrophe raid. We're gonna get the extreme scenario. We are going to get hero exclusive items. We are going to get level 56 hero caps. Hero proficiency will also expand, okay, to level 10 if I'm not wrong. And you will get Guild War team presets. I'm looking forward to that. So Berserk system was also added for the Korea side for this update. So you realize that before this, all their chapters, all their bosses had no Berserk mechanic at all. So they could take all their time to clear the bosses, unlike us. Okay, so yeah. So just to elaborate a bit about the hero exclusive equipment, basically through the Catastrophe raid, you'll be getting these things called Purification Crystal Fragments, which will be used to craft a Purification Crystal, and with the Purification Crystals, you will then be crafting a Soul Vessel. This Soul Vessel is actually an actual item you can power it up, enhance it to plus 15. Once it hits plus 15, you can use that to trade in to craft an exclusive item for a specific hero. On top of that, you will also need soul stones of the hero. You will also need 500 crimson essence. You will also need 1 million gold for a legendary hero. So for a legendary hero, for example, if you want to craft an Evan exclusive item, you're gonna need 20 Evan soul stones, okay? 20 Evan soul stones. And you're also going to need 500 crimson essence and 1 million gold. And after the finale update and before season 2 of 7 Night is launched, we will be getting level 11 and 12 formation upgrades as well as guild raid. Okay, so this is the overall timeline for Korea server. Global server may decide to mix and match it up, we never know. So yeah, I hope this video gave you a better idea of what is to come and how you can prepare for them. And if it did, do give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Big shout out to my channel members, Tom, Gonzalo, Jeremy, Yamaki, Bilal, Reggie and Fahas for their support. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much and see you!